Ow! Scary! Scary steam gentlemen, looking at three scary steam gentlemen here. Back in the steam tunnels for the spookiest month of the year. My favorite time of year. I won't speak for the other two esteemed members of the Steam Gentlemen here on the panel, but it is spooky month. It is season 2. We are back. You know what it means when it's season 2. It's a sequel, so it's got to have a higher body count, and that you can absolutely count on. We will bring the blood. We will bring the gore. We will bring the scares. Coming back to you, October of the year of our Lord 2021. We are back. So great to be here with you. So great to be meeting around the table again. It is the Steam Gentlemen. We're here to take you all the way from the Atari through the PS5, from the VHS to the streaming content and everything in between. Talking about the zeitgeist that guides us along. Let's introduce the panel today. I've got the artiste himself, the star child, the one who takes us to the cosmos and beyond, Mr. Gregory DeSense. How are we doing today?
Feeling all right. I like bring the blood.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We can go ahead and make that the slogan for the month. Bring the blood.
Bring the blood, bring the gore, bring the scares, all kinds of things. Get to delve into that subject, which I almost just don't even feel like it's making a show here. I think it's just sitting around and having as much fun as humanly possible with one of my favorite genres. Mm-hmm. And, well, not the cleanest of segues, but I want to bring you back to the Three of Clubs. The original last girl, if you will, the one who defies expectations, the one and only RaShaun Smith. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, Josh. How are you, man?
I'm doing all right. It's good to see you back. Good to have you back in the table. Good to sit here and wonder what kind of left hook and curveball you're gonna throw at me all at the same time.
You and me both.
He doesn't know what he's gonna do. He just does it.
We're all gonna find out.
That's absolutely that's absolutely what makes it magic. And
that's how we share, you know.
Yes. No, that's how we share. It's how we roll. That's how we bring it. But entering in, no secrets here. Not really too hard to guess what our subject matter is this month for the Halloween. We're delving deep into one of our favorite genres being horror. And we wanted to start with that case where horror gets overlooked, right? The fact is that it is not necessarily considered a serious art form. And often that's brought upon itself. Plenty of tropes that started in our childhood, going back to the slasher films of Halloween, Friday the 13th. Plenty of co-eds being chased around and scantily clad. So much so it is a trope. It's something that we know and we expect. But in the last few years in particular, the genre really has tried to take a step forward and really has tried to tackle serious subject matter and make us think about what scares us and why we're scared. Now, we're sitting around all in our different locations here, tuned into ourselves in the steam tunnels for this, for what many consider the most frightening reasons of a pandemic, where we can't even be close to our loved ones and friends. So it's a bit easier under that particular microscope. But we wanted to go into those cases where we really thought that a horror movie went above and beyond and probably deserved a little more recognition. Yes, we're going to go into that idea of where a film that was written so well, it deserved an Oscar nod. Yes, the big trophy, Oscar himself, that little golden statue that all filmmakers chase after. And why, and where we thought horror movies deserved it. Just a little bit. There's only been 18 horror films that have ever gotten any kind of Oscar nods. Most of them for films like The Omen, for example, back in 1976, won its Oscar for Best Original Score. Now, I can't say that they're wrong when they gave it that nod, because that music still spooks me out. I don't know if I'm the only one in that, but it was a ingenious idea of making this satanic Gregorian chant, complete with the Latin. And Latin just always sounds spooky. I'm sorry, I don't care. I don't care if you're saying, I know that you're saying the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, or you're saying love thy neighbor or whatever. It sounds scary. German also in that category. I'm not sure how the people procreate. Somehow they manage to, but nevertheless, even with a language that just, leans into it. Others like Black Swan gave a nod to the acting chops of Natalie Portman, which a little bit of an argument there. Is that truly a horror film? I don't know if I would put that as a psychological thriller myself. But it does touch on that idea of mental instability, which is not unimportant in the realm of horror as it goes. And it does leave a lot to imagine in the mind of the viewer. I would still argue that it doesn't quite transcend into horror. I'd say it's still in that psychological thriller and that questioning of particularly of a life or lifestyle of being in a dance company or ballet company. And this is a total non sequitur, but I just seen a article the other day about a married couple who were being accused of sexual assault and rape of their students in the Boston Ballet. So it seemed to me a bit more of a commentary on that world, if you will, which is truly disturbing, especially when we're talking about those subject matters. It's not to take away anything from it. And then brings it to probably the most famous horror film that wins an Oscar for Best Original Sound. And here's where I'm really going to start my little rant, my little take on it is The Exorcist. Now, obviously, the sound in this film, you cannot take it out of the mixture. The sound is one of the most disturbing aspects of the whole film. People may not realize when you're watching a movie, your ear starts to, and then the part of your brain that processes sound is usually about a half a second to a second ahead of your visual senses. So good sound editors put in little pops, little breaks, or hits between the edits, just before the edits. They help unsettle you. They actually help you feel what you're feeling a little bit sooner. And you don't necessarily process that at the time, especially film being such a visual medium, and you're sitting in the theater and watching it happen. You, of course, assume everything's sort of happening on that visual medium. And there are growls, there are sounds of there's a slaughterhouse sound that they're using to be put inside there. There's just all sorts of small, subtle things in the soundtrack that go along, of course, with the visual subliminals. I keep finding them, by the way. It's like Where's Waldo? I've watched that film, many times through the year, and you can still find those little shots of the artist they got to dress up as Pazuzu, the demon. So the film, in fact, did get an Oscar nod, but here's where it was truly robbed, I think, was for Linda Blair. She was disqualified from being Best Actress because they felt that there were a couple of scenes where they used a body double. William Friedkin to this day has said it's only half a second here, half a second there. He did nothing but praise her performance in that. She was such a young girl, and to do such a subject matter. But the other controversy that came with it that was much more profound, and this one I'm still not sure of to this day. He went back to a woman named Mercedes McCabe, who was a voice actress and sound artist in the day. And I guess she was an alcoholic, and she went back to drinking for this film, just to give you some concept of how deep it was, because she wanted to get the voice. And she is the voice of the demon. She is the voice that scares the shit out of you, that you see coming out of that little Linda Blair. Obviously, it's a trope in and of itself. It's something that is, laughed about and joked about on Saturday Night Live, but still no one else got that quite in the same way. So the story is originally she did not ask for a screen credit, and then later on came back and demanded a screen credit. So, but it all depends on who you ask, of course. She says that she always wanted credit. Friedkin said she didn't. In later cuts, it's been mentioned, and I even know her name. So, but I still think that the totality of that performance still does have to rely on then I think she was 10 or 12-year-old Linda Blair. And the unsettlingness of the film and why it still scares me, and I hope to talk about it more in depth in another episode, is the idea that what if this is correct? The idea that the Catholics are right. Let's just start there.
Oh God, no.
Exactly. I know I got at least one lapsed Catholic here. I'm the Jewish guy here, and I'm always in awe and kind of amazed, but by the reverence of the entirety of it. and the pageantry that goes on to it. Just watched Midnight Mass, by the way. Give that one a watch. Great film. Great series, I should say, not a film. But the idea that, yes, this is the way the world works. If that's truly correct, that is kind of terrifying, because let's face it, you're in a system of credit and debit, and most of us do not have enough credit to get into heaven. As my beloved wife, who is a lapsed Catholic herself, says, we're all just aiming for purgatory, aren't we? So
everything's a pyramid scheme, man. Even religion.
It really does. It really does strike you that way sometimes, doesn't it? Just got to get enough converts underneath you. So it's all in the
real
business
quick on Christianity and the truest sense of horror. Since you tapped into it, think about it. It goes triangle down. It literally puts you at the base, no matter how you look at the breakdown of the structure of the apostles and the higher saints.
Absolutely. With the prospect of, hey, you can move up, right? If you hustle hard enough, you move enough units, you can get that pin, you can move up on the structure. So
it's like everything else. You get to the top and you realize it wasn't worth it. Like Mother Teresa reportedly said.
Oh, wow. So, that's something I didn't even bring into it as an aspect, but so as I say, that in and of itself is a somewhat terrifying concept, but add to it then the other terrifying concept of mental illness and the idea that some creature could move into your body and take advantage of it. In the case of The Exorcist and several other possession films, that idea that, it could commit a murder. And then whose fault is the murder? Is that the fault of the body, or is that the fault of the demon, right? You have this kind of disconnect. That's just a terrifying idea. And having been someone who witnessed someone losing their mental faculties, I can attest to, I've actually seen it far too many times. You can attest to how terrifying a prospect that is, right? The one thing that you're supposed to be able to rely on is your own body and your own mind. So it really does tap into that theme. And I think because of that and the seriousness of it, it did get some Oscar consideration, but I just felt that it deserved a little bit more, and it should have been in the conversation a bit more, because it really is a deep film and a serious film. It does have serious questions of faith that get a little lost somewhere where I think being a genre bender and then sort of bending the tropes so much, it can kind of, actually not bending the tropes, created the tropes. I think it works against itself in that way. I did want to give a quick nod before my time is up to another film, though, that was the genre starter as well, but also was the beginning of the idea of putting political messages within horror films, which is George Romero's Night of the Living Dead. So real quick summation, it's the zombie apocalypse. There's a small cabin somewhere in the Pennsylvania countryside, presumably outside of Pittsburgh, because all zombie apocalypse start in Pittsburgh. Shout out to my earlier family right there. And Romero did something. It was in the 60s, so it came out 67, 68. So we're seeing images of Vietnam coming home on the television every night. First time that happened to America, where we're really just sitting up front to the horrors of war. We're not just getting, names in the paper. The civil rights movement is in full swing. We're also getting those stark images, right, of dogs being sicked on people, just asking for the right to vote, or just asking for, the most basics of rights, to take a sip of water or have a seat on a bus. And Romero makes the interesting decision. Firstly, he does a little Hitchcock. He makes you think you've got one protagonist, and then switches who the protagonist is very early on, right? Starts off, doesn't tell you what's happening, puts you right in the middle of the action. And he switches the protagonist, and he makes his leading man black.